Swamin Namaste Natalokabandho Karunya Sindho Patitam Bhavabdho Kataksha Drishtya Rijvyati Karunya Sudhabhivrishya Swamin Namaste Swamin Namaste Swamin Namaste Swamin Namaste Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yadikshanam Yad Vandanam Yad Shravanam Yadarhanam Lokasya Sadyo Vidhunoti Kalmasham Tasmai Subhadrashravase Namo Namaha Vichakshana Yat Charanopasadanat Sangam Vyudasyo Bhayato Antaratmanah Vindanti Brahmagatim Gataklamaha Tasmai Subhadrashravase Namo Namaha Tasmai Subhadrashravase Namo Namaha Tasmai Subhadrashravase Namo Namaha. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru. So we stopped at the shloka 11.3.30, which is from this Nimi-Navayogi Samvada, where the Navayogi Prabuddha is giving reply to King Nimi's question. The question was, what are the devotional disciplines so that we get liberated? What should we follow in our day-to-day life? What should we cultivate? What are the disciplines that we should cultivate? And also he particularly said that please tell us in such a manner that those who are not having enough intelligence, that is gross intelligence they have, they are also able to understand easily. So this Prabuddha yogi, he is explaining to King Nimi. And it is not for King Nimi alone. It is for every one of us who are the devotees, who are the seekers, and who want to learn, who want to practice, who want to progress in this path. How to be liberated. We want to be liberated from the shackles of our mind and intelligence. We have a lot of desires, always lack of contentment, and we always want more and more. Also, we have many tendencies like anger, irritation, hatred, jealousy and all that, because of which the mind remains agitated, disturbed, tense, fearful. So we want to become quiet, restful, and as we all know, in the restful mind itself, the self reveals itself. We are able to understand the presence of the Lord within. Otherwise, the Lord remains veiled by our desires. So, he has been talking and talking, and in this last time, I stopped at this one. Parasparanu kathanam pavanam bhagavad yashaha mitho ratihi mithastushtihi nivrittir mitha atmanah. That is, we should learn from our teacher how the mind can withdraw from worldly the worldliness of the mind. What is the worldliness of the mind? Desires for petty matters, matters which are perishables, matters and objects which will not give us permanent happiness, which will give us only short-lived pleasures. So, our learning has to be done from our Guru. Right in the beginning he says one must go to the Guru and learn. And one by one he is telling what we have to learn and what we have to practice. So here he says you must learn from the Guru how to withdraw from the worldliness, withdraw from the attractions of perishable matters and turn the mind towards God or self. That is, commonly and ordinarily our minds are attracted towards various objects. Our senses always take us to various objects and it wants gratification from those objects. But those pleasures are always short-lived, will not remain. So how to come away from that and find that the pleasure in the thought of God, in thinking about God, in singing His name, in pursuing the path to be united with God, we find more and more happiness. Every moment we get that. That is, we should know how every moment can be divinized. So he says that paraspara anukathanam. Paraspara anukathanam. That is, see, in day-to-day life what happens? We are constantly talking with each other. We have to talk also for various matters. But matters which are important and indispensable, we have to talk. But we know how much time we talk on matters which are absolutely not necessary. But we can turn it towards God. By what? Being very much aware. Here comes the role of the intelligence. Constantly the intelligence should tell us that thinking of petty matters, thinking of matters which are worldly, we are not going to gain anything except fear, tension, anxiety, etc. So, turn your mind towards God. So this introspection should be done by the intelligence. And when we talk to each other, we should engage in the talk of noble things. We should talk about God, talk about self, talk about Brahman, talk about the experiences that we have when we are in a sublime atmosphere, when we have prayed or worshipped or we have read something very good. So this anukathanam, talking to each other, should be like that. And I had told you of that one incident where I had gone to a lady's house and where I found that she spoke to me throughout the day only about his guru and spiritual matters. And that really touched my heart and it gave me an inspiration that one should be like this. We forget. We again and again, because we are used to this, we are used to talking about unwanted matters. We are used to talking about others, finding fault, criticizing, all these things. But we should very, very consciously turn our mind towards God, even when we are talking to other people, especially when we are in the association of like-minded people, where our discussion should be like this. So, paraspara anukathanam pavanam bhagavad yashaha. And anukathanam of what? We should mutually talk to each other. What should we talk? About pavanam bhagavad yashaha. We should be talking about the sanctifying deeds. It is Bhagavatam, so it is talking about the excellences and the sanctifying, the purifying deeds. When we read the Bhagavatam or we read various episodes, various chapters, where it talks about devotees, their devotion, true devotion, unconditional devotion, unmotivated devotion. What happens to our mind then? Our mind starts getting colored by that devotion. It becomes purified itself. It becomes sublime. And it forgets its all desires. And the mind becomes absolutely still at the feet of the Supreme. So this is what happens to us. So we should talk about Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. This word we should remember, Pavanam. It is sanctifying. It is sanctifying. My dear children, I always have been referring to this sloka, that we must have faith and belief in the Shastra Vakya and Guru Vakya. That is, the Shastras are telling us and the Gurus are telling us that these are purifying words. If you do this, you will be purified. You have to have faith in that. So, this Pavanam, Bhagavad Yashaha, it is sanctifying. So, when we know that something is sanctifying, which will purify us, which will make us elevated, which will make us nobler, we should be taking to that. So, we should be constantly aware, with introspection, turn our mind towards the sanctifying deeds and excellences of the Lord. Or you think of Brahman, or you think of the self. What will you think of Brahman and self? These are not just words. We do not know what they are, but we know the attributes and the qualities of the Atma and the self. The qualities like Ananta, limitless, then Nirakara, Niranjana, taintless. All these qualities of the Lord, Nityaha, eternal. So these attributes we must keep in mind. And when we are reading devotional texts, then it tells us about the excellences and the sports of the Supreme. So, in Bhagavatam, at the end, there is a shloka. Tadeva satyam taduhaiva mangalam. Tadeva satyam taduhaiva mangalam. Tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodayam. Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam. Tadeva shashvan manaso mahotsavam. Tadeva shokarnabashoshanam rinam. Yad uttama shloka yasho nugiyate. Here, what is this Prabuddha yogi telling King Nimi? He is saying, Paraspara anukathanam pavanam bhagavad yashaha. You should talk to each other, not of worldly things, but you should talk what? The sanctifying excellences and deeds and sports of the Supreme Lord. And why we should do it? It explains like this. It says, Tadeva satyam taduhaiva mangalam, Tadeva satyam bhagavad gunodayam, Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam, Tadeva shashvan manaso mahotsavam, Tadeva shokarnabashoshanam rinam, Yaduttama shloka yasho nugiyate. It says that Tadeva satyam, that only is the truth. And Tad eva mangalam, that alone is auspicious. Tadeva punyam, that is auspicious and virtuous. Bhagavad gunodayam, and which talks about the qualities of the Supreme Lord. We are talking what? We talk ordinary things. We talk about our family, our children, our qualifications or our profession, all these things. This does not elevate us. Not only that, you will find all these talks which surround us, which is only about our family and possessions, our wealth and our qualifications, it has lot of stress, strain, anxiety and fear associated with it. So, what it says, that alone is the truth. What is the truth? Truth always is. Whatever we generally talk about, it goes. It is not permanent. And it is not auspicious also. Many of the things that we talk are not auspicious. But when we talk about God, it is divine and auspicious. And it is the punya, virtuous. Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam navam. It is very beautiful. Not only beautiful, it is very tasty. And beauty and taste, whatever we know of, all go away. They are perishables. Nobody's beauty remains. People grow in age, and even if the most beautiful person becomes old, doesn't remain beautiful anymore. Similarly, the taste. We may taste something very good, but then that taste is perishable. It says that about Lord, about the Supreme, about God, whatever we talk about, it is not only beautiful, not only tasty, it is navam navam. Always there is a newness in it. You will agree to it. When we read the same thing over and over again, we find newness. It doesn't become old to us. That is why we keep on reading them. But are we able to read, are we able to hear the same stories of our life, of our friends, of our family? We will not like to hear. But this, we will be constantly getting a newness, a new knowledge, a new feeling, a new experience, and it never becomes old. Tadeva shashvan manaso mahotsavam. And when the talks about the Supreme Lord, God, what happens? Tad eva shashvan mahotsavam manasaha. For the mind, it is an eternal mahotsavam, eternal festivity, super festivity, not only festivity, it is a super festivity. See, we always look forward to festivals. Like now that Dashera is coming. After that Deepavali will come. After that another thing will come. So we will be constantly looking forward to festivities. But those festivities are all over, gone. It comes and goes, comes and goes. Nothing remains. But this one, talk about God, talk about the Supreme, talk about Brahman or the Self. It says for the mind, it is eternally festive. It gives us joy, a supreme joy, which is always new, which always fills us with bliss and ecstasy. So, Shashvan Mahotsavam, great festivity it is, not a small one even, great. Tadeva shokarnava shoshanam nrinam. And for men, talking about God, singing about God, discussing about God, you know what happens? Shokarnava shoshanam. Shoka arnava. What is that? That is the ocean of sorrow, ocean of affliction. All that gets dried up. How? Yaduttama shloka yasho nugiyate. If you sing or talk or discuss about that Supreme Lord, then all these things happen. We do it only for some time. In the morning, maybe for a little while. Maybe in the evening sometimes, little bit. And maybe when you listen to such lectures or you read something. After that, after the mind goes away from there. So what are these things telling us? It is telling us that turn your mind. You may talk, whatever is necessary talk. Yes, for many things we have to talk. But see to it that you don't waste time in talking unnecessary things. Whenever you get time, whenever you are meeting somebody, if you are alone, you read something and be absorbed in that, absorbed in the thought of God or in the excellences of God, the deed, the sports, the descriptions, the knowledge. And if you are talking with people also, even if they are not spiritual or devotional, try to. This is what will happen. Tadeva satyam taduhaiva mangalam tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodayam tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam, new. Always it will be newness. The new joy. The joy never becomes old. It never becomes old. Suppose it's a sweet. We know how the sweet will taste. We know the taste of a sweet. But this sweetness, it is always new. It always gives a new vigor, a new enthusiasm, a new inspiration, a new ecstasy, a new oneness. One just becomes absorbed in oneself. Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam tadeva shashvan manaso mahotsavam. It's a super or the greatest festivity in the mind. Tadeva shokaranava shoshanam pranam. For men, this is how one can go beyond the shokas. Our lives are full of shoka. Little shoka. Let aside big afflictions. Let aside big adversities. Maybe one is fortunate enough that no such big adversity one faces. But every day, little sadness, little disappointments, little dissatisfactions, we are constantly facing. Shokaranava shoshanam. And those small shokas, small dukkhas, small sorrows, all that become big in our mind, occupies the mind like anything. And ourselves will find crisscross chattering is going on these unnecessary matters. That is why Shankaracharya tells in Viveka Chudamani, Anatma chintanam tyaktva kashmalam dukkha karanam chintaya chintanam tyaktva. All the thoughts which are on perishable matters, which are anatma. What is atma? Which is eternal, imperishable. And in opposition, all the worldly things are perishables. But most of the time of our life, our mind is in those perishables. So he says, anatma chintanam tyaktva. My dear children, just at this moment, look into yourself. How much time do we think about Atma or self or God? How much time do you spend in that? Most of the time of the day we are thinking of the perishable matters, the worldly matters, which will not remain with us, which will not go with us. We will not be able to hold on to them. But our mind is going there. Even if we want, we are not able to be successful in turning our minds. So the Yogi Prabuddha is telling us what all disciplines you should do. Not one, quite a few he says. Try all of them. All. One will, if we try to follow one, we'll find that the other also is getting done. Other also is getting strengthened. So here it is a very simple one. Try not to talk about perishable things as far as possible. Turn your mind towards the discussion of God. Talk to each other, only that. So, paraspara anukathanam pavanam bhagavad yashaha. So it says that shokarnava shoshanam nrinam, tadeva shokarnava shoshanam nrinam. I was just discussing with you that all of us have small shokas throughout the day. All that will be gone. Suddenly we will find that the mind is so cheerful. All these will become absolutely insignificant in the mind. Insignificant. We make all these worldly thoughts most significant in the mind. Somebody has talked to me in a very bad manner. I wanted that and I did not get it. I should have obtained that, but my fate is very bad. So many things. Always disappointments, dissatisfaction, lack of contentment, fear. All these things are completely in our mind. All that will go. Who is saying? This text is saying. The Shastra is saying. It tells us, our Shastras, they tell us like a mother, do this, practice this. You will find that there is lot of joy and peace. The peace and joy which will never leave you. So shokarnava shoshanam, even if there is shoka, it just dries up, like drying up an ocean. So, mithaha ratihi. So through this, what we get when we, suppose there is a group or even two people discussing all these things about God, then what happens? What should happen is mutual joy. Telling each other, we'll be having joy. Now our joy is in what? Telling about our children. When we meet together, either you talk about your children, or about your family, or about your disease, or about your promotion. We get joy in that. And can you hold on to those joys? No. Always there is a fear. All these joyous things will go away, may not remain. When what will happen, we don't know. But in talking about God, since it is Ruchiram, Navam, there is intense joy which always remains. Mithaha tushtihi, and mutual satisfaction, which will lead to Atmanaha nivrittihi. That is, one will be detached towards the world. As this, in Bhagavatam it says, Bhaktihi viraktihi bhagavat prabodha. There is devotion. And when the devotion grows, all that in this sloka we are telling is that turn your mind from the worldliness, turn it towards God. So your bhakti towards God should increase. And as the bhakti towards God increases, what happens? Naturally, the bhakti or the love towards God will increase when love for the world, which has been so much, that will be reducing. So virakti towards the world will also increase. So as the bhakti increases, virakti or dispassion towards the world also increases. And when both increase, that is, devotion increases and dispassion to the world increases, what happens? Bhagavat prabodha. One will be able to realize the Lord within. Our real identity is the Lord. You call it God, you can call it self or soul, anything. There is the eternal presence there, the eternal consciousness there. But we are not aware of it. We don't think about it. We do not try to get absorbed into it. Our mind is always going outward, and we feel that we'll get all happiness outside. But when we do this, what happens is that we get absorbed into oneself. Absorbed into oneself. So, the mind, Bhagavat Prabodha, the realization of that I am not this body, that I am, my real identity is eternal and imperishable, that knowledge, one gets established in that knowledge. One can be united in one's own self. So, when few devotees sit together, then we generally talk many things, but talk about God, talk about the sacred text. If you cannot talk anything, at least sit together and read something about God. Maybe one or two people together, that is how the satsang groups are there. People should sit together and read something. If one reads oneself, maybe you may not find it interesting. But you can read together, discuss, why it has been written, what does it mean? Say even this shloka, what does it mean? Suppose few devotees are reading the Bhagavatam. It should not be just a chanting. It should not be just that we have finished one chapter chanting together. We know how to chant this chapter. That will not give you anything. Yes, it's a discipline, no doubt. But to grow in knowledge, to grow in devotion, you have to understand what this sloka is speaking. Anugathanam. Respecting. Am I doing that? Whenever I am in the midst of people, what am I discussing? What am I talking? Am I talking about God? Am I seeing God everywhere? So this kind of assessment, analyzing oneself, am I doing it? Or am I falling from there? Am I failing to do? When will I be able to be successful? If I make a resolve that, oh yes, I will turn my mind, I will not be in unnecessary talks. So, compared to yesterday, did I fare better today? This kind of thought should be there. And if it is in a group, one can discuss why it becomes difficult, what are the hindrances that doesn't allow us to talk of God. What are the hindrances? Why is it that we talk only of the worldly matters? Why is it that in spite of hearing so much, listening so much, wanting so much, we are not able to be talking only of God or thinking only of God? We are only thinking, mostly we are thinking of our worldly matters. What is that state when in the midst of all that happens in our life, we will feel that we are divine? We'll never fall down from that feeling and experience. Such a state is it there? How will I reach it? What is hindering me? Discussion should be on that. What are the hindrances? Why is it that I am clinging? Why is it that I am so much attached? Why is it that I am not able to leave my clinging? Clinging to my possessions, acquisitions, my family. When will I be liberated? So, the reading should be with so much of manana. I think I have spoken about this for a long time, in 2 or 3 sessions. That manana should be there. It is not enough that we read or listen. While reading, while listening, manana should go on. It is rumination and reflection should go on. First of all, reflection on what? What does it mean? Then the reflection on what? With introspection. Why is it that I am not able to reach this state? This is not just, it's only saying paraspara anukathanam. It is not even saying self-realization. It is not saying that you have to think of the self and think and be the self. Simple thing. Paraspara anukathanam pavanam bhagavad yashaha. Should it not bring about a feeling of manana? Am I doing it? Why is it that I don't do? What hinders me? What obstructs me? What is the obstacle? How will I be able to do? Here I remember one story, Swamiji had, I think I have told it many times, but still I will repeat. Not story, it is an actual incident. See, Swamiji had asked me, we moved to Kharagpur IIT. Swamiji asked me, by choice, try not to take up any job. Before that, I was teaching in a college. So he said that, by choice, try not to get employed anymore. I was very young, just 31, 32 years old. And he told me. And he said, you read the Shastras, particularly now you study the Bhagavatam. And do research in that. Let that be your whole interest and aim. So since Swamiji had said, because my Guru has said, so I bought a Bhagavatam book with shloka and English meaning. Word meanings were not there. And the Bhagavatam shlokas at various places is too big, too many sandhis, too many words are mixed together. Did not know how to break them, how to chant them. So I will read the meaning, try to read the shloka. Sometimes I would get headache. I also bought one Sanskrit to English dictionary, so that if many words I did not know, so I would consult the dictionary. But then, since I was reading the translations also, it was so beautiful. Now I know. At that time I had not come across this shloka. Ruchiram navam navam. Tadevaramyam ruchiram navam navam. It comes in the 12th skandha. And I had started from the first skandha. So I did not know this. Later I understood that it is so. Swadu swadu pade pade. Every word, every moment is so sweet and nectarine. Every word as if it is filled with nectar. And when we are reading them, as if this word is getting squeezed and its nectar is falling on us. Bhagavatam is like that. So, a lot of interest I would read. And for me, it was a direction given by Guru that I should read. So I simply took to that. First of all, I left my job and I started reading Bhagavatam. So I would be reading Bhagavatam in the morning, and then at about 11 o'clock or 11:30 I will go to the kitchen and cook. Now, after a few days, I suddenly found that when I'm reading Bhagavatam, the next door neighbor, a lady with a small child, about my age only at that time, she would come and knock at my door. So the first day when she came, I welcomed her, made her sit down and talked to her, gave her some tea and snacks. And then she left after some time, about an hour. I thought that was over. But the next day also she came, right at that time. That is the time her husband is going to the office, she's free. So she comes. So like that, when few days were over, I was thinking that I was feeling very, I did not know what to do. Because when one person is coming, a guest is coming, we cannot be rude or harsh. But that was my time for reading the Bhagavatam. And after that I had to do household work. So my reading was getting disturbed. So I thought what to do. Then an idea came to my mind. What I started doing is that in the beginning I started cooking. So I started cooking. She would come at that time. I'll still make her sit down and talk, give tea and snacks. But in between I will say, please wait, I have to go and stir something in the kitchen. Or maybe the pressure cooker whistle will suddenly whistle, so I'll run to the kitchen. Like this, when 1 or 2 days are over, I found that she did not enter the gate of our house. She just crossed and went and entered somebody else's house. So I was relieved. Do you get it? Why did I say this? It is that interest. At that time, I wanted to make my days full of God. What I read, to feel them, to understand them, to feel them, to be drenched in that. And when it was getting disturbed, I cannot be rude to anybody, but an idea came that how I can avoid the situation so that I can still read whatever I was reading. Suppose it was some years back, it would not strike me. Why did it strike me at that time? Because I already started feeling the nectarine sweetness in the talk of God, in the descriptions of God, His excellences, His sanctifying deed. So my usual worldliness, usual worldly talk, it was wanting to turn away. And how to turn away? We have to think about God, but it was getting disturbed. So this idea came that, okay, I'll do like this. I did not turn her away. I did not behave rudely to her. But when that lady who was given to worldly talk found that I am not sitting with her and constantly talking and chit-chatting, she did not find any interest in that. Remain in the thought of God. Remain in the thought means what? Remain in one divinity, a feeling of divinity. My dear children, when we worship, when we go to the temple, when we do some work related to worship, our mind becomes very sublime, very divine. It becomes very light, very pure. Can we constantly feel that in spite of remaining in day-to-day life? Can we remain in that? When we read these shlokas, see here it is, as I was telling you, it is just one very simple thing. Prabuddha Yogi is telling us, Paraspara Anukathanam Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. So, whenever you are fine, why did I tell about this incident that which happened? I found that Paraspara Anukathanam was happening, that is, talking with another person, was happening only on worldly things. And that is not the aim. Now, how not to hurt but do something? So we also should see that am I constantly wasting my time in that, or without hurting anybody, or without keeping everything proper, can I spend more time in these talks, these thoughts, listening and reflection? So mitho ratihi mitastushtihi, that is, one must get mutual satisfaction, mutual delight, and what will happen then? One will get absorbed into oneself. Absorbed into oneself. I think that while telling you this, I feel one thing should be very, very clear. If we are seekers, we are devotees. What is our aim? The aim is to absolutely transform our thought processes, what we speak, and what actions we do. Through everything and anything, anytime, we should not fall down from the divinity which we are seeking. If we have touched that divinity, if we know that divinity, always our feeling should be how to remain in that divine feeling, how to remain in that pure feeling, how to remain in that sublime feeling, that devotional feeling, a feeling that nothing matters. Nothing matters. Whatever we do, nothing matters. I want only a feeling that I am embraced by God. Govinda parirambhita. And a feeling that whatever I am seeing is God. Ekanta bhaktir govinde yat sarvatra tadikshanam. That one pointed devotion in everything, everybody, every time. And seeing that divine feeling, the divinity, everywhere in everything. My dear children, that alone is the aim. That is called self-realization, that you remain in the realization of the self. What is that? We don't know. But we can think like this, that the self is everywhere. So I will have this kind of a feeling and realization where wherever my eyes go, I find the self or God there. That is why our seers have written such beautiful shlokas. Yatraiva yatraiva manomadiyam tatraiva tatraiva tavasvarupam. Yatraiva yatraiva shiromadiyam tatraiva tatraiva padadvayam te. Wherever the mind goes, will never be detached from the feeling that it is God and God alone. Yatraiva yatraiva manomadiyam tatraiva tatraiva tavasvarupam. We find Him and Him alone everywhere. And yatraiva yatraiva shiromadiyam tatraiva tatraiva padadvayam te. And we are walking about, our head is going from here to there, everywhere is He and He alone. So the mind should be bowing down in humility, in love and devotion. These are not all detached from one thing, just one instruction, paraspara anukathanam. About what? About the sanctifying deeds of God and the Supreme Lord, deeds and excellences. Or you can think of the attributes of Brahman. You can think of all that. And what is the aim? To be constantly feeling that. Whatever you do, you don't fall from that experience. Okay. Then, smarantaha smarayantasya mitho ghaugha haram smarantaha smarayantasya mitho ghaugha haram harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya bibhratyutpulakam tanum smarantaha smarayantasya mitho ghaugha haram harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya bibhratyutpulakam tanum. That is, Ogha haram. That is the impurity, lots of it, Sri Hari is the one who removes everything. Agha Ogha Haram. Then Mithaha Smarayantaha cha, and constantly talking about him. Paraspara Anukathanam. Same. Then Bhaktya. While doing all these things, see so many things, so many instructions he has given, then he says that it is very easy to remember him by constantly talking about him, constantly thinking about it, singing about him, and discussing about him. So, this should be not as a just discipline. Mark my words. It is written here. What? We do all these devotional practices. What? Reading, discussing, listening, singing, praying, worshipping as a discipline. Just as a discipline, ritual. Morning we get up, we take bath, we light a lamp, we do lot of worship and all that, chanting slokas, and chanting very, very regularly, religiously, some Bhagavad Gita or any other text, and we are very happy. We may be contemplating and doing dhyana also. And over for 1 hour or maybe 2 hours, we are happy. Our work is done. And we feel that we are a great devotee. Great devotee. We do not see what these instructions are for us. Not only this, through this you must progress. Progress to what? It says that one must transcend bhakti as discipline. One must transcend that. Don't remain stuck with that. Day after day, day after day, day after day, the same routine. Has the mind got purified? Has the mind got sublimated? Have you started finding joy in everything? Have you started seeing God in everything? Have you started finding the self or God even in the person whom you do not like? From your mind, the tendencies which agitate you, disturb you, have they gone? Have you found a limitlessness, expansion? Has your mind turned away from the worldly things and finding more and more joy and love in the thought of the soul, the self, Brahman, God? Has it started happening to you? To what extent? To what percentage? We just read this, this chapter. We'll be reading Bhagavatam. Maybe we'll finish reading the Bhagavatam at least 30 times in our lives. And when we read this, we are just reading it. That should not be. We must see what this is saying. Bhaktya sanjataya bhakta. You have to transcend this routinous discipline of devotion. You must understand what is devotion, who is a devotee, what are the lakshanas of a devotee. Elsewhere it is written, not in this chapter, who is considered to be a devotee, what attributes he should have, what qualifications he should have. The first thing is that he should find the same God everywhere, in everything, sarveshu bhuteshu. He should find God. Is it happening? Is it happening to me? Am I progressing towards that? When we start thinking like this, my dear children, there is a lot of joy. Then there is no monotony in these practices. We'll find that yes, we have progressed. We have to progress a little more. We have progressed. But one incident just made me feel that I have failed. Okay, I'll do it better. Then there comes a lot of interest and enthusiasm and inspiration in walking towards that state where yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha, where when we reach, we find nothing more is to be attained. nothing more is there. We feel contented completely. So, bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. So, from this devotional discipline, which is just pursued as a discipline in a mechanical or routinous manner, one has to transcend that, and the actual devotion should arise in the mind. One should be awakened to a spontaneous love, spontaneous devotion to God. What is this spontaneous love and devotion? A mother, a girl becomes a mother, a small child. She looks at the child, handles the child, and so much of love she develops that she is constantly thinking about the child. Wherever she goes, whatever she does, the child is in the mind. That kind of a devotion, which is unconditional, unmotivated. We don't want anything from God. This bhakti should be, I just love you. I cannot but love you. My mind does not feel satisfied in anything else than in you. Now, who is this you, God? You who has told me you are everywhere. So, I want to be happy, I want to be fulfilled, finding you everywhere. Ekanta bhaktir govinde yat sarvatra tadikshanam. I want to see you everywhere. I want to know, I want to understand, I want to get established in this fact that I am God's, I am yours. I have been created by you. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to you. This kind of a thought, we have to constantly, initially as a habit we have to think. So, not that these chantings and other things are not good. As a discipline, definitely good. But as you know, when we are in the school, in the class 1, we don't constantly sit in class 1. After class 1, we have learnt more, so we will give an exam and go to class 2. If we don't read, the students who do not read, they fail, they remain in class 1. We should not be like that. Our Shastras are telling that with your buddhi, mind and buddhi, you are a human being. You have got mind and buddhi. With mind and buddhi, whatever the Shastras have written, apply it, understand it, assimilate it, and go forward. And here, in this particular sloka, what is he saying? He is saying, bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya vibhratyutpulakam tanum. Utpulakam tanum vibhrati. That is, think, reflect, ruminate, assimilate, be absorbed, and grow that spontaneous, unconditional, unmotivated love for God, which is called prema bhakti, para bhakti, where the devotee doesn't want anything else except to have devotion for God. You know, we are selfish. All that we want to, even in our aim, it is an aim. It is an aim. Definitely, we must have a spiritual aim and devotional aim. But even there we get bound. We get bound by that. And ultimately, what happens? That why I am not progressing, that becomes a bondage. Here in the devotional text, it says, a devotee is who? Is that person who wants nothing. Wants nothing. Whether he has progressed, not progressed. He wants to be but surrounded by godliness. completely absorbed in godliness, remaining and being active in one's own life. It's not that he sits somewhere and he experiences the godliness. He's active, he's moving about, but in his mind he never falls from that godliness where he has got absorbed into. So bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. So then how do we do it? All this can be done. Can it be done? Yes. We have to first remind ourselves, get into a habit. We think about Him, think about God, think about self when we are at home, when we are doing work, when we are going out, when we are going to the office, when we are wearing a dress, when we are taking food. We are walking, sitting, mixing with others, reading something. Every time, don't forget. Never forget. Think, how is it that I forget? I don't forget my name. I don't forget where I belong to, where is my home. I don't forget my qualifications. How is it that I forget God? Because of whom I am animated, I am enlivened. So, making it a habit. So this consciously, repeatedly, one must think like this. Otherwise, how can we do? It will be just, chanting and reading and thinking about something else. That is what happens generally. Even many of us, when we are listening, mind will go somewhere else. So, we have to repeatedly, consciously make it into a habit. This habit has not been formed so far. Nobody has told us to make such a habit from our childhood. That, you do everything. But in between, think that because of God, because of the presence, you are active. That you belong to God. Nobody has taught us. So our forgetting God is deep into us. Now we have to become different. So naturally that also has to be practiced, remembered, and one should remind oneself. That is why, paraspara anukathanam, one should remind each other. Macchitta madgata pranaha bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Macchittaha madgata pranaha, the one whose mind is only in me, has become identified with me. Bodhayanta parasparam, they will be explaining to each other, making each other understand who is God, what is God, how to find Him. Kathayantascha mam nityam. And about me alone, they will be talking to each other. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. They become very pleased only by talking like this, and they sport and rejoice in my talks. This is what happens. So this kind of a practice, see, this whole chapter, this whole few shlokas, it is a practice. It is a practice. There is if you read, there are parts and sections where we get the supreme knowledge and how to actually realize that knowledge, how to be established in this knowledge. You have to practice. This whole chapter is practice. So how do you practice? Practice like this. Remind, remember, tell each other. If somebody else is talking worldly matters, if you are in like-minded people in a group, tell that. Simply turn and say something about God. Turn from that topic. And keeping a conscious effort repeatedly. And vichara. One must have vichara. That is, vichara is introspection. With the buddhi, we must tell our own self, tell our mind, that why are we wanting to think like this? Why are we trying to be like this? Because that alone can give us the realization of our own self, nothing else. So these are practices of bhakti. And when we do like this, when we practice this, what will happen? I-ness will go, mindness will go, kartritva will go, bhoktritva will go. That is the doership and enjoyership, all will go. Because as long as we are in the worldly thoughts, why do the worldly thoughts arise? Because of this I-ness, that we think that I am the body and everything related to me is mine. Then the desires crop up. It disturbs us. Dissatisfaction comes. So this is how the cycle goes. And when the mind is turned and the mind starts finding joy, satisfaction, contentment in this kind of thought, discussions, then what will happen? Naturally the I-ness fades away. When the I-ness fades away, mindness fades away. So the kartritva, bhoktritva, the doership and enjoyership, slowly they start fading away. And what happens? Whatever we do, it is spontaneous and natural, sahaja. Now mostly what we do, I have done this or I did not do this. I want this or I do not want this. That I thing comes first. And what is the sahaja? Whatever is there, I will do. Even if I don't like, I will do because it has come to me, so I will do. That sahaja feeling, absolutely unburdening of oneself. No kind of burden in the mind, anxiety in the mind, fear in the mind. That happens when one becomes absolutely expanded, absolutely identified with the self and in this universal self. So the practices which lead to this parabhakti, it will need lot of effort and practice, repeated practice and conscious practice. But what is the net result? The net result is one have oneness with the Supreme. Oneness with the Supreme. Now, it says that, this is the last sloka, it says, Kvachit rudantyachyuta chintaya kvachit hasanti nandati vadantyanaukikaha nrityanti gayanti anushilayantyajam bhavanti tushnim parametya nirvritaha. Kvachit rudanti. I'll just take this and maybe tomorrow, next time I'll finish this. So it says, Kvachit rudanti achyuta chintaya, kvachit hasanti nandanti vadanti alaukikaha, nrityanti gayanti anushilayantyajam, bhavanti tushnim parametya nirvritaha. So what did the previous sloka say? That when one is able to go beyond the devotion which he feels devotion, but actually it is a mechanical or routinous thing that we do, but transcends that, the disciplines or the practices that one does, transcends that and attains parabhakti. That is the bhakti which is absolutely natural, which is spontaneous, effortless, unconditional. One gets absorbed into oneself. That united union happens with the Supreme. And in that state, what happens? Parametya nirbritaha. When that happens, what happens? Kvachit rudanti. Sometimes one will be shedding tears. The joy of union that gives tears. I think to all of us it happens sometime or other, when we hear something, when we listen to something, when we are meditating, our eyes get full of tears, because for a moment we are united. Only because we are not practicing properly, we are not remaining established in that. Otherwise, proper practice will make us remain constantly in that state. One will not fall from that state. Kvachit rudanti, achyuta chintaya. Rudanti, in joy one will be shedding tears, thinking about the Lord. Achyuta chintaya. Achyuta is Lord Hari's name, Achyuta, who never falls, who never moves, or never gets displaced. That is the self. It is the self. Achyuta is self. There is no Chuti. There is no movement. Is always fixed. The self is always that, Nitya, Nirvikara. No change takes place. It is changeless. Achyuta chintaya. So thinking of Achyuta, Sri Hari, or the self, whatever you may say, one starts shedding tears. And kvachit hasanti. Sometimes he laughs. He laughs thinking about God's sports and excellences. Nandanti. Sometimes he's full of bliss, thinking of the God's love. The love, that love, the supreme love, which only God can give. All the other love, they are not pure. Everybody's love in this human relationship, all love is tarnished by expectations. We may love somebody, but we expect love in return, many other behaviors, expect good words. Only the supreme love is absolutely taintless. It is pure. So, when we think about God's love, we get full of bliss. Vadanti alaukikaha. Sometimes we utter words of divine significance. That is, we start taking His name, chanting His name. That gives us a lot of joy and bliss. Sometimes some people start dancing and singing as if God is in front. And ajam anushilayanti. Who is ajam? Aja is one who is birthless. So anushilayanti. Sometimes we imitate the actions of the Lord. That is, what is the anushilayanti? We can think like this. All the qualities of God, we start imbibing them. That is how we can imitate the good qualities of God. We start imbibing them. And sometimes one just becomes silent, absolutely silent, absorbed into oneself. Absorbed into oneself. This is what happens. This I will take next time. So, coming to the end of this, I don't know whether this has been in any way beneficial. I feel that it should be beneficial, because in my spiritual journey, I've always felt how to do. And see, in Bhagavatam, in many of the skandhas, in many of the chapters, similar instructions are given. Many are similar. Actually, if you read them, you'll find mostly they are all similar, but written in a different manner. So how much important these are? Because we cannot become a devotee or a seeker. We cannot even aim to reach our goal unless we do this, Unless we practice this, we have to be pure. We have to become pure. Now our mind is full of desires and expectations. We want God a little bit. And the whole world, 99%, 1% God. But we feel we are devotees. So first that delusion has to be broken. That I am a seeker, I am a devotee. Lot of ego is there in us. I am a seeker, I am a devotee. What am I doing? All the Shastras, whatever they are telling us, whether it is Vedanta or devotional texts, they are telling us, you have to be like this, you have to become pure, you have to be desireless. In what way are we practicing that? To become desireless, to become pure, to become unmotivated. Okay. Sampurnam jagadevanandanavanam sarvepi kalpadrumaha gangam vari samasta vari nivaha punyas samasta kriyaha vachah prakrita samskrita shruti shiro varanasi medini sarvavasthitirasya vastu vishaya drishti parabrahmani sarvavasthitirasya vastu vishaya drishti parabrahmani. Jai Guru.